Welcome to Realm University. My name is Michael Baldwin, and this video is to take you through the settings to activate maintenance follow-up. You will either have landed on this page as part of your original onboarding, or when revisiting the settings to either activate new services or change existing settings. Maintenance follow-up basically activates on the set number of days after the due date for a maintenance job and conducts a follow-up process with your tenant and or your tradesperson. So as you can see here, you can either send the follow-up to the tenant to get their status, or send it to the tradesperson, or you can send it to both. They will both receive an email with a link to a web form, which will have all the tenancy details pre-populated along with the job details, and it is up to them to provide their status from their perspective. And once they click submit, those details will be updated in your property management software against the job. Two differences depending on the tenant or the tradesperson. The tenant also has the option to complete what we call the Net Promoter Score, which you may have seen elsewhere. And that's basically the 5 smiley faces from really angry to really happy. And that's so that you can start and collate some information on what your tenants are thinking about your tradespeople. The tradesperson gets a slightly different option as well. If they respond that the job is still pending, we ask them to provide a new due date using the calendar in the form. And there's a mandatory section for them to provide comments on why the job is pending. Once they click submit, the due date on the job will be modified to that new due date, and the property manager will be notified that the due date has been changed by the tradesperson. The count then starts again once we come back around to the new due date if the job is still not in a finished state. Here we have the schedule time. So you can basically change whatever time you wish this to run, morning or night. Specify the minutes as well if you wish. Click OK, and that's when we will run. So depending at what point you feel you'll have had all your updates normally from tradespeople during the day, the schedule will kick off. Again, in this case, we'll say we're going to send it to the tenant and the tradesperson. These settings here, the first is basically how many days after the due date do we wait before we kick off this process. So in this case, we're waiting 2 days after the due date, and that's when we will include all jobs that are past their due date by 2 days. This next indicator is basically how many times we will send a follow-up to your tenant, tradesperson, both or either or, before that would complete the maintenance follow-up process. So as you can see here, we'd send 4 reminders every 2 days until the status of the job reaches a satisfactory conclusion, or the due date is actually changed and it moves it out of Claire's grasp until we possibly come round to it again. The last 2 settings here, some agencies, if they've done that amount of follow-up and the job still hasn't had any response from the tenant or the tradesperson, they prefer to mark the job as finished and move on from there. And the opposite to that is that if we exhaust all of the follow-up steps, then we will notify the property manager and add a task to the property management software for that property manager, basically saying that we've exhausted all of the follow-up processes and we now need them to take over chasing this job because it's past its due date. That's it for follow-up. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.